and welcome. It's lovely to see so many people here. I think this is going to be a really interesting evening, so thank you for joining us to advise you to make sure that your thoughts are here, because this is about your thoughts and what's happening with Manx Wildlife Trust. So thank you very much for coming. I'm Viv Davies. I'm a volunteer with the Northern Group of supporters for Manx Wildlife Trust, and there are other members of the Northern Group mingled amongst you, as well as members of Manx Wildlife Trust. I'm just going to do the very important bit of saying there is no fire alarm due. So if one goes off, please make an orderly exit the way that you came, but down the stairs, please. Don't use the lift, out through the back door, cross the car park towards the quay, and stay there until help arrives. If anybody cannot make the stairs, there is a place next to the lift, which is a safe place where the fire brigade know where to come. So hopefully none of that will happen, but just in case. And so what I'll do now is hand over to my very able colleague, Hannah Phillips, and leave you to it. Thank you, Jane.
Hi everyone, thank you so much for coming to Wild About the North. I'm Hannah, I'm the Community Ranger for Manx Wildlife Trust. So this evening you're going to hear from a really lovely panel of people talking about different opportunities to volunteer and help wildlife. But I'm going to speak to you first about something called Team Wilder, which you can see at the bottom of the slide there, and something that I'm welcoming you to. Team Wilder is a movement that is taking place within all the wildlife trusts all across the British Isles, and it's a movement that celebrates community projects and individual action. So yeah, community projects and individual action, and this can be anything from doing stuff in your garden, in schools, in your workplace, or in your local park. So Team Wilder is the Wildlife Trust trying to help the community and the people who know their area more than anyone and know what they'd like to see and what wildlife they'd like to welcome. So today, although you're going to hear from a panel of people who have got some really great projects to volunteer in, the most important thing is that we'd like to hear from you about your local area, about what wildlife you'd like to welcome there, and how we can go about doing that. So I'm going to show you a really quick video, 2.5 minutes, which is a group in the UK who saw a local churchyard that was a bit overgrown and not very well loved, and they came together and they've made it a really nice place for wildlife. So hopefully that will work.
We've called it St Peter's Reimagined because we had to reimagine the space. We've taken it back, we've claimed it for people, for nature, for mental health and for friendship. We just looked at it and went, oh my gosh, it's going to take months, years to do this. But we just got more and more people coming, and the more people that came, the quicker it happened, and 3.5 acres, and we did it. We've had residents, we've had congregants, ex-rough sleepers, some homeless people. They all come along because they see the same group here every Tuesday, and that's been the gift of this project. It's everyone from every walk of life. We've had kids from the age of 5 up to 88, I think, is our oldest volunteer. They come for the camaraderie, the bonding, and to make a real difference to the community, and it's been so positive for everyone. Everyone has just watched the site come alive.
The big thing has been to be here with wonderful fellowship.
I'm really happy to be here, to have found all these really good people in my life.
It was such fun, and I just carried on doing. We didn't know where the time has gone through, just the area of this place and the peacefulness of it.
I think this whole St Peter's community is welcoming to all walks of life. Like us too. Like us too.
We've got a group from Bournemouth and Poole College who've come, and we've been doing some work maintaining some of the grounds. just been amazing for the students to be outside, not in a classroom, learning things about the environment and about nature, but more importantly, just experiencing it, experiencing being outdoors, experiencing the cold and the wind and the rain and all the things we protect ourselves from. And the students go home so happy and so proud of what they've achieved, and they all love it.
So that's just a really good example of what Team Wilder is all about. It's all about us as the Max Wildlife Trust helping you, the community, to work together and improve a local area for wildlife, and while also doing that, helping ourselves, because we all know that wildlife is so important for our health and our well-being, mental health and everything. But you know your local areas far better than we do, and you have probably a lot more creative and brilliant ideas than we do. So that's why we've got the post-it notes here, because we want to hear from you about ideas that you have and how to welcome wildlife and how we can all do this together. So, before we hear from our lovely panel, we have an activity. Don't look too scared. We've got these post-it notes and we just want you to answer a couple of questions. So, 3 questions. The first one, just thinking back and remembering a positive experience that you had in nature, how it made you feel, why it was something really positive, why it's had a lasting impact on you. So there's post-it notes and pens. But yeah, if you just think about why wildlife's really important, why we're working so hard to protect it. I remember, I think one of the reasons that I started caring so much about wildlife was when I look back to when I was a kid, and I didn't really enjoy school that much, but I used to go out dog walking with my mum all the time, and that was sort of a real highlight to my day, and I think that actually had a lasting impact. Number 2, what are some good things about where you live, and what improvements would you like to see? Now, this is about wildlife, unfortunately not about sort of bin collections and things like that. So if you can think, maybe there's a really nice wildflower verge near where you live, maybe that's something really good and something that you'd encourage in other places. Maybe you and your neighbour could go out and maybe do some plug planting or put up some bird boxes or something. Or maybe that's what's already being done. Number 3, what are some ideas for helping wildlife thrive in your area? So number 2, what improvements would you like to see? What wildlife would you like to see more of? And then number 3, how can we go about doing that? Maybe you see a couple of birds already, but you'd like more of them. How can we go about working together to make that happen? So I'm going to leave them up on the board, and we're going to just take about 10 minutes to maybe 15 minutes to think about these things. After that, we've got a lovely panel, and you can still keep thinking and writing things down. We're then going to have a coffee break, and we're going to put some of the post-it notes up on the board so we can see what people say and think about maybe how we can make these brilliant ideas happen. So I'll hand it over to you now, and a couple of us will come round and have a little chat. Thank you so much. Keep thinking, because we'll leave post-it notes there, and after our panel have done their talks, we'll have tea and coffee, and then while we're having tea and coffee, we'll put them on the board, and then we'll have a big chat about it. So keep noting it down if you think about anything, because hopefully a couple of these people might inspire you, who knows. So who else do I need? I need Leigh, and Vanessa. Do you want to come up, or do you want to come up when it's your...
Oh, come on.
Come and sit next to... Yeah, come on, pal. Be proud. And is it Vic or Kim? Who's doing it?
Double act.
Oh no, you'll have to sit on each other's lap. I've only got one chair.
Let's throw somebody off.
Well, you can come up when it's your turn. You can give a big round of applause. So our first speaker on our panel is Andree. He works for Max Wildlife Trust. What is your role?
Conservation Officer.
He's a Conservation Officer for Max Wildlife Trust. And he's working on a project of ours at the Ramsey Woodland Park, and he's going to talk to us about building assault courses.
Hannah, we have the mastermind music now.
Mastermind music, yeah. Bom, bom, bom. Do you want me to press the button? Or you won't press the button?
I can press buttons and stand in the way. That's better. So MWT Woodland Park. This is the site that the Manx Wildlife Trust have been working towards for about 6 or 7 years now, and it encompasses Clebain Plantation, and it encompasses land around Clebain Plantation as well. And the idea is by 2024, which is not a long way away, we will have a visitor destination that will be a place for Manx Wildlife Trust to meet people. Now, I think I've pulled up the wrong slide.
Yeah, do it again. I don't know why you put that one in there.
There we go.
Right. So, the Hairpin Woodland Park then, this is going to be a site where the Manx Wildlife Trust meet people. And what we are, I suppose, essentially looking for are people to help us build it and people to help us meet people. So once we've got a site, what we would like is for people to be able to engage with members of the public in many different ways to be able to make this site work. But we'll start off with the building. So there's a few things we want to do. We want to have a car park. Unfortunately, the Isle of Man government is going to build us a small car park at Clebain Quarry. So that will happen and that will make the site good. Now the Wildlife Trust will make the site happen virtually, so we will get it connected onto the internet and make the site function in a virtual capacity as well as a reality. But then we need to do things. Now we want to have things like an interpretation pavilion or somewhere to stay out the rain. And this will be one of the spots where people will be able to meet other people. As I say, perhaps people such as yourselves, where you could become a Manx Wildlife Trust volunteer ranger and wear our badge. And just like so many of you do at places like the Ayers Visitor Centre and the Scarlet Visitor Centre, engage with people and chat to them about wildlife. The way this site's going to be different is this is a site where hopefully many thousands or tens of thousands of people will come through the season. So it will have a volume of people that you would not probably experience at places like Scarlet and the Ayers. And it will have people whose experience of the countryside will often be a lot less. So people from Douglas who don't often come to the countryside, if there is a tourist sign on the mountain road pointing to somewhere that says this is a visitor attraction, people might give it a punt. And if there are people to make that a welcoming experience, that would be great. So, government, contractors, Manx Wildlife Trust. Now, why is that waymarking post in there? That waymarking post is we really want people to be able to help put things up and make this site function. One of the ways of making this site function is that anyone who visits the site will be able to find their way around. It'll be about 80 acres, all told in the end. Now, 80 acres is big enough to get lost. And it's big enough, if you're not really familiar with the countryside, it's quite alarming to get lost, especially at this time of year when night's drawing in. It's not a pleasant experience and can be very off-putting. So we want waymarking posts so people know where they're going. We've got really good relationship with Milltown. So from the Hairpin, we would like to have a waymarking post saying that there is a cafe and lavatories 1.5 kilometres that way. And if you go a little way along, there'll be a waymarking post that says there's Milltown with cafeteria and lavatories half a mile that way. And so people know how they're getting around. It's really basic stuff. But we need people to be able to put these things up. Yeah, we're hoping to recruit people to do so. Another thing we want to do is to have a 1 kilometre all-ability trail. Now this might be a little way down the line. It might not be 2023. It could be in 2023. But we want a 1 kilometre trail that will be a family nature trail, a jogging trail, a dog walking trail. places where all abilities will be able to walk. So people with health conditions, people in wheelchairs, families with buggies, absolutely all ability. Somewhere where people are not struggling up and down steep slopes, so it goes on the contours and you get a nice 1 kilometre trail. Whether you're someone who works in Douglas and wants a 20-minute jog in the morning, 20 minutes, that's actually quite a long 1 kilometre jog, isn't it?
Yeah, that's mine.
Yeah, that's or you're one of the people who use the site anyway, a dog walker, and we might be able to make dog walkers feel a lot more welcome than they are. A lot of people who, how many of you here have got dogs? And a lot of you probably sometimes don't feel particularly welcome there. You know, there's messages saying, don't do this, don't do that, and behave. We want people to actually come there and enjoy themselves and really have a good time walking their dog and do it responsibly. So we'll do all sorts of things to try and allow dog walking to be a more pleasurable and inclusive experience, which I think for the hairpin it is already the case. Now I don't want to make this talk too long. Really hard work. We are building an assault course at the top of Cabane Plantation at the moment. This is an assault course not for our intern, who was very game to allow herself to be photographed in this rather inelegant position. But yeah, this is the assault course and monkey bars that we're putting in, and this is really for that age group that's not always catered for. There's a lot of play for young children, but for the sort of 8 to 13-year-olds, there's not a lot, and having out-of-way places where they can do things that are perhaps a bit more challenging than you would find in your average playground. Hopefully that will be something that will be valued. I don't really know, but contractors are going to do a lot of the work, and then after that, it will require a lot of volunteer work, corporate volunteers and local volunteers, we hope, to help us turn the assault course from a disjointed series of things to do to a unified course that's really fun to play. And then very finally, I know time is ticking, I just want to introduce you to the concept of the nut glen at MWT Hairpin Woodland Park, which will be at the crossing side of the Hairpin Woodland Park. Now, if the hairpin side is all about meeting new people, the crossing side, what we want is about engaging with people and allowing them to really develop their love of the countryside in meaningful ways. We can do that in many ways. First of all, is by making it much more social. Now, I'm not saying that we'll have this many people always there, but hopefully it'll be a bit of a hub where people can meet often like-minded people, often people they will be able to learn from, and certainly a place to chat, and to be able to do really interesting things to stretch themselves. There will hopefully be a forest, a food forest, a small garden there that just grows woodland food, so strawberries and apples essentially, but many, many more things besides. Engage in mindful exercisesness. I'm going to keep that word. Now, that looks a little bit not like reality, but it could be. A nice area of decking and a mindfulness, a sort of multi-purpose mindfulness space for yoga and Tai Chi, and for lots of other things. Hopefully we'll have that sort of peaceful space. A classroom. Areas to do new things, turning wood into biochar. Biochar is essentially a charcoal that you add back to the soil and locks away carbon for hundreds, if not thousands of years. So we'd hopefully have one of those. We would engage in something called agroforestry. Agriculture, forestry. There's hopefully a big future on the Isle of Man for agroforestry. Places where you can grow trees and produce food. So this would be sort of somewhere towards where we're hoping to get. And then Parkland. Now, I just wanted to put those last slides in as a kind of a bit of a flavour of what we're doing. Probably in the next year, it'll just be enabling works. And when I say enabling works, what I mean is lots of tree planting. So acres and acres of tree planting, lots of paths, getting the template of that site ready so that over the coming years we can make it into one of the best places, I think, to come and engage with nature in a really profound way. Now, I've already overstayed my time, so I'm going to zip it. At this point, do I take questions or are we leaving it for the end?
Maybe the end.
The end, okay. Okay, on
Thank you. And yeah, we'll have the tea and coffee break, so there'll be lots of time to chat, and we can do questions at the end. I'll also mention there's some slips of paper over there. If you're interested in any of the projects and you want to hear more, put your details on the slip and the project you're interested in, and then put it in the box, and then we'll sort of get in touch. But yeah, thank you very much. Next, we've got Lucy and Vanessa. They're brilliant because they've been doing Team Wilder before Team Wilder even was named and existed. They've both been doing community gardening and set up community gardening projects, and it's all very exciting, so I'm going to hand over. Do you want me to press buttons?
Which button is not pressed?
Right arrow, I think, or maybe the space bar as well. All right, I'll do the space bar.
So I'm Lucy. I'm now the Team Wilder Coordinator for Max Wildlife Trust. And I know I've met quite a few of you before, but Hannah's already been into a little bit of the theory about what Team Wilder is, and we can do more of that at the end if people have still got questions. But I thought I'd do quite a personal account of how I got into wildlife gardening and what inspired me to set up my own community garden. So my walk along the Team Wilder path, unbeknownst to me, started about 6 years ago with the birth of my little boy. So that's Rex. He's my second child. And it was quite a difficult time. The birth was difficult, and it wasn't what I wanted for him or for me. And in the months after that, people have had kids, very, very sleep deprived. I was recovering, we got another child, and I think as a family we just started to feel like the wheels were just coming off a little bit. But I'm a big believer that in the disruption and the chaos, that's when the real opportunities lie, and that was definitely the case for me. And at that point in my life, I felt like nature just stepped forward in a really big way, and it was a really positive influence. It brought me and my family a lot of joy, and it was very grounding and calming and really saw us through. And I'm not an ecologist, so I'm not very good at identifying species and that sort of thing, but I did start to become hyper-aware of the wildlife around me. And I'm in Douglas, so that's one of the less probably wildlife-rich places on the island, but I was really watching, and I started to feel quite profound about all these lessons that I felt like the plants and the birds were teaching me. I've got lots of examples, but I thought I'd just give one really practical one. So I was watching a bird making its nest, and I was like, wow, just animals spend so much time making their homes really nice and clean and tidy, and that's important for their health and them staying safe. And at the same time, we're living in this 2-bedroom flat, and we're bursting out the seams of it, and there's chaos everywhere, and there's toys and kid stuff. I was like, right, I need to be more like the blue tick. I'm going to tidy up. And I did, and it was inspired by watching the blue tick. I cleaned out 72 bin bags of clutter from a 2-bed flat. And I think it might be more, but in my final throes, I threw away the chalkboard that I was keeping my tally on. So I'll never know how many it really was. But I think the next slide, for your amusement and my embarrassment, is the photographic evidence of my spice rack before and after the big clear up. There it is. So, yeah. So I'm going to move on from the spice rack. I think I don't want to look at the spice rack for too much. So nature was really making a big impact in some really practical ways on my life, and it was impacting how I wanted to raise my children. And all my spare time, which wasn't that much at the time, I was learning about it and I was researching and I was learning about biodiversity loss and organic gardening and permaculture and all these great things. And then I'd have to pack all my research away to take the kids off to a baby group and sing nursery rhymes. And that was lovely and I really enjoyed it. But at the end we'd be having a coffee and I'd be looking around thinking, I wonder if I could talk to any of these mums about whether well-made compost is really the answer to life itself. And I didn't think it was appropriate, so I thought maybe I hadn't found my people. And my family live in Wolverhampton, so I always miss them, but I was really missing them at that time, not just for the enjoyment of their company, but I think it's good to have people around your family, around the village, around to support you, especially when you've got little kids. But my mum and dad did come to visit. This story is going somewhere. And my mum was telling me a story about when she was little and her mum would take her to their local farm and the mums would go and pick potatoes and they get paid per bag of potatoes that they picked. And they'd take the kids with them, so the kids would all play and the farmer would build a big bonfire and he'd cook potatoes in the bonfire. And at the end of their shift, they'd all sit round and have a buttery jacket potato for tea. And Mum said, oh, they tasted great. But she was saying, you couldn't imagine that happening now, could you? That, you never let kids do that, health and safety and this. But my mind was whirring, and I was thinking, that's exactly what I want. That's what's missing. That's what I need. And that's where my idea for the community garden came for, because what I wanted was to be around like-minded people. I wanted to be out in nature, I wanted to learn new things, I wanted to be able to take my kids and for them to play and get dirty, but not actually be the centre of attention. I just wanted them to be able to get on with it and have a nice time in the mud. So I set up a community garden and it was called GRIN, and that stood for Garden, Recharge, Inspire, Nourish. And I'm not going to tell you all how I set it up or what we did when we were there, because what I've learned and from meeting Vanessa and other people with community gardens is they're all really different and they've all got their own personalities and they've all got their own reasons for being. But I'll show you some photos and to try and give you a bit of an idea. So the main purpose of my garden was when I was learning about gardening and I was watching Monty Don and Alan Titchmarsh, and then I'd get going I was in a patio, I've got a little patio with some pots in it, and things would start going wrong. I need Monty Don here. So I thought, well, I bet there's loads of Monty Dons in the Isle of Man. I just need to get them in one place so I can ask them questions. So the concept was that we get older people with lots of practical hands-on experience of gardening to come along and support people who were just starting out like me and people who I knew and teach us how to pass on their skills. So this is just a picture of a group of us there. And this is my little boy Rex. So we'd grow the food and then at the end we'd sit around and we'd let the kids taste the food. So we had a game, did we buy it or did we grow it? And they, we told them, no, and they were like, you grew it, like we didn't grow it. So they didn't always get it right, but so it's experiential learning. And yeah, I just think eating peas fresh from the pot, that's a memory from my childhood, and I think every kid should have that. So that's him having a good munch. And the kids, when they were outside, it was stress-free and they're happy and they weren't forced to get involved. It wasn't actually for them, it was for the grown-ups who wanted to learn from people who knew what they were doing. But the kids just naturally loved it and they were gentle with the plants. And that's it's always my little boy, because you have to be careful about taking photos of the kids. So yeah, he's practically famous. But also, what was just really lovely about it, so at that time, I said that I was feeling quite, engaged with nature, but I was also, that meant that I started to feel really, really worried about it as well. And I was thinking, we're in a right pickle here, what can we do about this? And it could have easily slipped into despair, and this was my way of jumping into the ring and doing something positive. But I didn't realise it would turn into such hope, because so many people wanted to help. And this is a group from Barclays, I think, and they came along and did a team building day with this, and they really grafted and they really genuinely wanted also to be in nature and helping and being involved and being part of the community. That's some of the food that we grew and people used to make things. And what was funny was when I started, people came along and they were a bit nervous about getting their snacks out, you know, if it was some mini cheddars, because they thought everybody would have organic carrot sticks. I was like, oh no, you bring the mini cheddars. But sometimes we had nice homemade goods. And then this. Okay, so this, I said that I was going to bring it back to wildlife gardening. So we don't have to play that yet. Or we do not want to. Not yet, but do I just press that one?
I don't know. Yeah, I found it really.
All right, well, we'll
nice.
give it a go. That's just a nice picture of some lavender for now. But so while this project was running, we moved house. So I moved from my concrete patio with some pots into a house with a little garden, but it was new build, so there was nothing in it. But all of a sudden, it was like having my own classroom. So all of these skills that I'd learned from these people who came along to the gardening club, I was able to experiment. And I did my Max Wildlife Trust gardening course, which was amazing. I met Viv and Ian and bought some plants from the plant fair that they run. So I've got a full lavender hedge from there. And I've got a monstrous rhubarb that just I don't know what to do with it. It's delicious. But it was just really lovely being able to take something from a group back into my own really personal space. And every time I'm there, I'm just reminded of the generosity of gardeners and where each plant came from. My garden, it's not as messy as my spice rack, but it is a bit messy. But I'm just going to try and play a little clip that I took in the summer of the bees. And I know it's not all about the bees, but I do love them. Of the bees in my garden and all the plants.
I can't remember how I did it. Maybe hit spacebar. There you go.
So many.
So many. I think I might get sacked on the spot because Graham's pretty nifty behind the camera, and this is not good filmmaking.
Let's see.
And this was in a new build garden.
This is a little garden in Douglas with a newbie gardener, and we planted it and they came.
Wow. Oh my God.
It's cool, isn't it?
So good, isn't it?
I'm sorry, it's all a bit wonky. It's like garden equivalent of the Blair Witch Project.
Yes, maybe.
There we go. I think it's getting the picture. It's nearly done. Yeah. It doesn't look like that now, although it's all flopped over. So that's that. So that's just a really whistle-stop tour of the way Team Wilder, for me, worked in practice from, really jumping into the ring and sticking my head above the parapet and following what I was feeling as a call to action, setting up a community group, or just a gentler way of just implementing what I was learning and the values that I wanted to live by in my own space. And both are really as valuable as each other, in my opinion. But we know it can be a little bit scary to do something new or different. I think that's what Team Wilder is all about. If people have got an idea inside them, they're thinking, I want to do that, but maybe it's somebody else's job, or maybe I wouldn't be very good at it. We're here to be the cheerleaders and make you the champions, really. And I think if we all do what we can, and I'm probably preaching to the converted, but if we all do what we can in our own little circles of power, then I think we can tip the balance back into nature's corner, and that's what gives me hope. But now, we're going to hear from Vanessa. Hannah and I have had the absolute joy of seeing Vanessa's community garden in Braddon, and it is spectacular, so I will hand over for
I haven't got any fancy slides, so you just have to listen to me. I started volunteering and maintaining at the Coronation Community Garden back in 2019 at the start of the lockdown. And I suffer from depression and anxiety, and I'm bipolar, and I lived in a flat with no garden or outside space. So the lockdown was very, very difficult. And so a group I was involved in took a group of us to the garden. It was converted from a children's playground in 2016. It had a group of volunteers, and it was converted to a community garden, and it was kept going, but obviously with volunteers they come and go, and it got overgrown and neglected by 2018. So along came Leigh, who's a total novice gardener, and I set about restoring it and weeding, and as Hannah knows, I love playing with the soil. I come from Jersey, and my dad was a Jersey farmer for Jersey wild potatoes, so I grew up playing with the soil. Unfortunately, at my careers talk at school, I wasn't very academic, and probably because I'm bipolar and couldn't get O levels. My careers talk said, you go and learn to type and become a secretary. And even though I did agricultural and horticultural science at school, and because I was too fit to do chemistry, biology, and what's the other one? Physics. So I did my agricultural and horticultural science O level, got it really easily, but then I went away and became a secretary for 30 years, office worker, and totally the wrong direction. I'm 60 now, and I'm a born-again gardener. I no longer work in offices, thank God. No disrespect, I'm not working in an office. So anyway, I started volunteering at the garden 2019. Totally got into it, very, very passionately. I could get there at 7:30 in the morning, work my socks off, not even know 7 hours had passed. Take my flask, take my packed lunch. I'm not into sticking plugs in my ears and listening to music. I like listening to the birds and the nature and being there in all the seasons. I go when it's pouring rain, I go when it's windy, I go when it's sunny. There's a water supply, so when it's hot I just hose myself down. And 2019 I restored it to a functional community garden and started growing vegetables. I went over to Jersey and bought some Jersey wild potato seedlings back and planted them. Got told off by the Manx farmers because they said they're not Jersey wild potatoes, they're Manx Jersey wild potatoes. But they tasted just as good as my dad grew. And then I grew peas and cabbages, but then because it used to be a playground, it was quite barren of colour. It was just green, and I like colour. And my favourite flower is daffodils, so I bought 200 bulbs of daffodils and planted them all around the perimeter with tulips, crocuses. Because I no longer work in an office, I was unemployed, had no money, so I got rose bushes from Deals at £1.20, about that big, and they're big now, aren't they? There's apple trees planted when the garden was established, pear trees, gooseberries, raspberries. So anyway, because I was so growing in passion for the garden and it was benefiting my mental well-being, I thought, and it wasn't really used by the local community, but I thought, because I've been under Manx Care Mental Health Services for 15 years, I've been to Brunswick Gardens and been a part of that, and I thought this could be a little showcase for mental well-being garden for the community of Braddon and Union Mills. So that's what it is now. It's not big enough to take loads of volunteers, but it's developed and now established that it's used as a community garden. We had a Jubilee party there in the summer, and the community came and they contributed and they made food and they could take produce and herbs and all stuff that was grown there. I'm enthusiastic to have workshops at the garden because I'm a conservationist and environmentalist and passionate about wildlife, whatever we're talking about here. I want to hold more workshops there. So, for instance, a hedgehog workshop. I'm about to go on Sunday to pick up a little hedgehog house. And I'm expanding the idea, the garden, not just growing vegetables. I've created a water feature. I want to create a sensory area for mental well-being, for carers who have autistic children to come along and generally relax. I don't want to give the impression that community gardening is just about growing things. People can come and enjoy open spaces, like you said, for educational purposes and relaxation and all that. And so some people in the community have grandchildren and they paint beach stones, for instance, and during COVID messages and welcome and stuff like that. So people can enjoy the outside space doing whatever they like creatively and experiment growing or growing flowers or whatever they'd like to grow. We've had a Christmas party there where we had a live singer, a barbecue at Christmas, which was very well attended. And what was lovely once, I was working there and the row of commissioners' houses, which is Coronation Terrace, I call it Coronation Street. I've been watching Coronation Street since I was 6. And I got to know all the residents, the community, and one day Shirley, who I get on tremendously with, and once I've been working there all day, I go and have a cup of tea. She's 75, so she enjoys company. She came down to the garden one day in the summer and she brought me a hot meal because she knows how hard I work in the garden. She thought I needed to eat, stop and eat. And to me, that touched my heart because it demonstrated good old-fashioned community spirit. And I thought, wow, this is how I grew up in Jersey as a youngster in the farming community. Jersey, as you know, was occupied in the war. People had to pull together, look after each other, grow their own vegetables. You know the story. In this day and age, with the coming recession and poverty, I work at the food bank. So people are more and more struggling and it could get worse. So I also maintain the food bank allotment out of grade and grow produce for the food bank, as well as at the food bank headquarters I have an example of pots and tubs that people can grow potatoes and help themselves to herbs when they're food bank clients. So to me, in this day and age, it's hugely important that people relearn some of those old skills of times gone by, of growing their own vegetables, being self-sufficient, not relying on air miles to bring in all their veggies, grow their own strawberries, not wait for them to come from Spain in plastic tubs. I hate plastic. I spent 3 months in Mexico on a turtle conservation project, and I don't know if any of you have been to the Caribbean on the posh beaches that are beautiful sands, beautiful sea. I spent 3 months in the rural areas, and you couldn't go on the beaches because of the plastic. So I'm hugely passionate. I have 2 children, and I never ever let them drop a piece of rubbish on the ground. So for me, I digress. Community gardening and educating our young people, which I think, from listening to all media reports and how they're coming on in schools, they're naturally very wise, like the pictures you showed. You get children in the garden and they're totally natural with it. One of the nicest things at the community garden is when a 4-year-old comes by, they're not shy, they just start talking, and they're asking what herbs are this. I've got a herb bed, and it's got all the different smells, and it's got a orange fizz geranium, hasn't it? Which smells like oranges. It's got lemon verbena, it's got thyme, it's got oregano, it's got chocolate mint, it's got apple mint, and they can go along and touch that and smell that, and it attracts all the bees and the insects. I've run out now. I'm going to stop. I'm getting nervous.
It's such an amazing garden, and the work you're doing is just incredible, so thank you. Next we've got double act Kim and Viv to talk about the Northern Supporter Group. To the stage.
To the stage.
Yeah, Northern Supporter Group. I think it was Hannah that said, how many people actually know about Northern Supporter Group? Because quite often you think that people do know, and they don't necessarily. Northern Supporter Group has been active since mid-late 90s, and people like Jean Buck and Richard and Ruth who are here tonight have been involved from the start. Lots of people have been involved over time, and it's really about volunteering for various projects for Manx Wildlife Trust, and also doing things. So that can range from over time Pordui, big restoration there, that was really through the Northern Supporter Group of Manx Wildlife Trust, with lots of support from Ramsey Town Commissioners and from Barclays. Various other things have gone on over time. Planning permission, all sorts of different things which involve nature and the environment and the community. The slight difference that we're talking about tonight is not just volunteering for a particular project or for work within the Manx Wildlife Trust, but actually broadening that. That's fantastic examples we've just heard from Vanessa and how people can do things for themselves. And it's a big step actually, because it's much easier to go along to Andree and he said, right, then we're building an assault course, get on with this. And that's fantastic. But sometimes, as Vanessa's been talking about, as Lucy was talking about, you want to do something for yourself, and then you think, well, it's not just for me actually. Other people might be interested in this and get involved. So that's where we came from. But what we're doing currently, and have been doing for some years, are various different types of fundraising things, but also, again, involving people with nature, and out at the Ayers Nature Discovery Centre, doing amazing work really to again engage with people. I'll hand over to Kim, because you've been doing fantastic work to organise for the Nature Discovery Centre.
So can I show of hands of how many people have been out to the Ayers National Nature Reserve? Okay, that's good. I don't have to give you a lecture on what it's all about, because you'll all know that it's a very special place. It's the only one in the island. It's owned by Max National Heritage and the Isle of Man Government, but we run the little visitor centre out there, and it's open from May until September in the afternoons. And we talk to people who come in and ask about the wildlife there. We point out where we hope they might see a common lizard, maybe, if you're very lucky, on a good day. We'll point out where the orchids are, and we'll just talk about our work as an organisation, try and sign them up as a member, of course, and generally help to bring the area to life for them. And certainly when people weren't travelling because of COVID, and lots of people from the south were having staycations in the north of the island, it was really amazing how many people had never been up to the Ayers and were gobsmacked to find such a place on the Isle of Man. So for volunteers, it's a 4-hour afternoon stint. If it's not busy, you can sit in the sun and read the book, but you are often very busy and you can meet people from everywhere in the United Kingdom, and often from overseas as well. So you can have some really amazing conversations. Try and sell them a few things from the shop as well. But you know, we're always looking for new volunteers, because there is that thing called Anno Domini, which threatens all of us, and some of us are getting a little bit older. So any help you feel like giving, please sign up, and you'll have a lovely time in a beautiful environment.
And the other thing that we do, it was annually, but now biannually, is we have a gardens fair, and something that Lucy referred to. And we look for volunteers there, both for the day, because on the day we like people to come, buy plants, wander around the garden, have some cream tea, something like that, so people on the day. But most importantly, certainly at this time, is people who are interested in their own gardens, but may have some excess that they would like to actually grow on for us. And what we're trying to do, particularly for this year coming, which is June 2023, is to have all our plants on a peat-free basis, make sure that they're all grown from either seed, peat-free, or they're propagated cuttings and so on. So what we're looking for is people who might want to help us to grow for that particular event. And, you know, it may be that you've got a packet of seeds and you want 10 plants yourself, but actually growing 20 wouldn't be too much of a problem, and carry on growing those until June, when you can deliver them to us and we can sell them in aid of the wonderful work of Manx Wildlife Trust. So lots of ways to help. They're just two, whether it's at the Nature Discovery Centre or something like the Gardens Fair, which, as Lucy has so wonderfully described, means that you can actually, with those plants in your own home, create your own haven from wildlife, which is lovely for you as well as the wildlife. So sign up if you're interested. Thank you very much.
And then, thank you very much. Lastly, I'm sorry. To be honest, I'm quite happy not to show the next slide. But very lastly, we have Leigh talking about a project at Milltown and getting involved with the Milltown vegetable garden. And yeah, that's why I didn't want to show it, because it's a horrible picture of me.
Hello, thank you so much for coming. I'm gate crashing this, so I'm going to be really quick, because I only came on because we had a really exciting meeting just a few days ago that we wanted to tell you about. First of all, I'm going to say genuinely how lovely it is to work with some wonderful people, because I think it glows. So I'm purring sitting here listening to all these fantastic, enthusiastic, passionate people tell us about what they're doing, so thank you. I'm going to tell you, I'm going to introduce you to this man. Put your hand and wave. So Andrew's actually the chair of our Hairpin Woodland Park project group, and he's part of Rotary Club of Douglas, who are funding the project. So it's a partnership. So in the coffee break, colour Andree or me or Andrew and ask us about the Hairpin Woodland Park. This picture was taken last week. Most of you, I guess, will know Adam. Adam's the head gardener at Milltown. And what this picture really is three people, four, because I was smiling at the same time taking the picture, who have come together through connections through the Woodland Park and just through horticulture. So my background really as a horticulturist, although I'm not at the sharp end now, but so I've met a few other horticulturists now, and Adam's one, and Adam's working closely with Andree, and the Milltown Garden's really part of that Hairpin Woodland Park. But we're looking for places where we can get people involved with nature and with gardening. And they've got a wonderful little vegetable patch and a little polytunnel in the nursery area. And in short, they've said to us that they would love us to help create a team of volunteers that do vegetable fruit gardening and wildlife gardening in a very nature-friendly way at Milltown as a group of volunteers. So I've been involved with volunteer groups in gardens in the past in some wonderful places, and this is definitely a wonderful place for a community garden. So it's not quite, you've thought of it, an embryonic. So what we think this is almost a halfway house, because although there's a little bit of what they want done, there is a blank canvas as well, and there is an opportunity for the group, if we can get a group, to actually help steer what happens in that space in Milltown. And the other cherry, if you like, the other bribe for anyone that might be interested, is that, I'll use Hannah as the example. So Hannah won't mind me saying that Hannah's not a horticulturist, and she's keen to learn about growing plants. And the beauty is that Adam, the head gardener, who's a fantastic horticulturist, is not saying, crack on. What Adam's saying is, well, I'm doing this anyway, and I'd love to be there every week, you know, answering questions, making sure the volunteers know what's going on, making sure that Hannah is comfortable in facilitating the group. So this becomes a project where Milltown actually want volunteers in their garden. We want to enable people to go gardening for wildlife and learn horticultural skills and wildlife gardening skills. And this is a fantastic place to do it. So we've agreed in principle. I need to do a memorandum of understanding and get it signed, but that will be a shoe-in. And then we'll be looking for people that would like to come and work, facilitated by Hannah, working alongside Adam and the other gardeners, setting up a community project in Milltown. And if I was in Douglas now, I might tell you about other things about Douglas Council and projects in Douglas on a similar vein. So there's some exciting things ahead for us, working with communities around gardening, wildlife and spaces. So please meet Andrew. Thank you to a wonderful team, including the guy behind the camera and the people that haven't said anything tonight. And I think it's coffee break now, isn't it? And no, I'm going to pass to you because you probably have tasks for them in coffee.
No, well, it's coffee break now, but thank you so much for listening. If you've got any more thoughts to put on your post-it notes, then please do. And then please start putting them on the board and chatting to each other about your ideas. And if you want to sign up for anything, then there's some slips down there. Put your name and put it in the box because of GDPR. But yeah, please have a tea or coffee and biscuits. So yes, go ahead. So I've got the really nice form. I'm going to read out some of the really positive experiences and memories that we've had, because I think it's, you know, it's always good to remember why we care so much about wildlife and nature, because I think it's easy to forget, isn't it, in this very busy world. So there's some really lovely ones up here. I mean, helping the used golden retriever to return to their normal and happy life. I mean, because I said earlier, like, dog walking was sort of what got me into it. So when I saw helping a golden retriever, I mean, that tugs at the heartstrings. We've got seeing baby frogs in the brand new pond, which is lovely. Getting together to plant trees. Watching seals at the point of air. I think we can all relate to that one. As a child, running through woodland to get away the troubles at home. Really lovely memories and great examples of why it's so important for us to be encouraging more wildlife and creating more green spaces. So thank you so much for sharing all of those. They're lovely, and we'll keep them up for you to have a look at later on.
So some of the good things about the area that have been written under the topic heading number 2 were views of the hills and countryside as well as Ramsey Bay, which I'm sure we can all appreciate. Bird populations, choughs, buzzards, various corvids, and winter thrushes and hares. That was one. We've got bats, hedgehogs, trees, a whole list of wonderful wildlife there. And we have here, good things about where I live, have access to the railway walk in Union Mills, and have the beautiful Coronation Community Garden, and all the historic garden history to learn about and learn from. Wonderful.
And then we've got the one that goes on to what action we can take, and I've tried to group them a little bit. So there's a big area about community growing and food, and I think you know, when we had COVID, you saw how quickly the food system could get interrupted, and I think that's really put it fresh in the minds of a lot of people. We've got some really great work going on with the farmers as well, with our agri-environment scheme. So I think we are quite connected to our food on the island. And then we come down to maybe looking at housing developments and where they should be, and how we could make those more wildlife friendly. And I think some of the developers are really, you know, want to get on board with the measures that they can take as well. And we've got greening churchyards came up a couple of times, and there's some amazing work happening in some of the wildlife trusts in England on working with churchyards. So if any of you, we'd love to start that over here. If you've got any strong links with churchyards locally, we'd love to hear from you and see how we could help supporting more biodiversity in churchyards. And then loads about the opportunities in schools. I think people are sort of really on it that the kids and coming through the education system, there's such an opportunity there. So how schools, what they're learning, how they're using their spaces, can they be using, can we be getting wildlife gardening going in schools? And I think that's so important. But the teach, you know, seeing what's happening with the teachers, they're so busy. I don't think they can run gardens as well as everything else. I do think it takes the community to support them to do that, and then they'll be able to enjoy it and take their lessons out there a little bit more. And then we've got a little bit on water features, protecting our doves, ponds, ditches. Then lots of pollinator stuff, which is fantastic, and a few more specific ones. So we'll take all these home and use all your ideas, or steal your ideas. And but yeah, if there's any that you feel like you would have connections or have ideas as to how we could start mobilising some of this stuff, again, that's what Team Wilder is all about. It's about supporting that, and we know that you probably know between you all more than we know. So we want to know what you know, and that's all I'm going to say.
We said earlier that we'd had time for questions, but we said at the beginning that we also wanted this to be a big conversation. So as well as questions, does anyone have anything that they want to say or share, or any ideas that have just popped into their heads? Because I'm aware it's been us that's been doing a lot of talking. We haven't actually given you a chance to put your hands up and say anything. So please feel free to jump in. There's no pressure, but you know, if you want to tell us to, you know, stop talking and you want to say something, then go ahead.
I'm happy to say something as a Ramsey resident.
Yes.
So there is a very special area down Poole, which is being considered for development at the moment, and I think that it's an area that deserves protection and enrichment. So some of it has been used in the past, so it is technically a brownfield site, but it hasn't been used in so many years that nature has reclaimed it. But it could do with being enriched and also protected. So it'd be really nice to hear people's views on that, and also if anybody has any ideas of what we could do to actually help wildlife in that area.
Does everyone know where this area is? Has anyone else heard of it? Yeah?
There used to be a market garden down there. Market garden down near the riverside, near the old buildings.
Too young, I don't know, sorry.
Right, now I've got an aerial view I saw 1945, and the RAF took up pictures of the area there. It was all sort of gardens and orchards and stuff, but it's really nice.
Lovely.
But of course it's all disappeared over here.
Does that ring a bell with anyone? Sort of these orchards and gardens
It's like
down
a market garden.
market gardens?
The road leading down still called Gardener's Lane.
Yeah.
Oh, is that where we were yesterday?
Gardener's Lane.
We were on Garden's Lane. Oh, yeah, it's Skill.
Yes, I was just
Sky
saying that.
yeah. And what does everybody feel like have we explained what Team Wilder is? Does everybody feel like, what do you think of it? You in?
Can I just say something, because quite a lot of what we've been saying, and rightly so. No, I'll stand over here. Fewer people over here. Quite a lot of what's been talked about this evening, apart from the super examples from down south, it has been Ramsey-centric, if I can call it that. Okay, and I've been working hard over with one or two friends over the last 2 or 3 weeks to try and get people from all the villages around. Bride, Solby, with some people from Solby here. Joe's been working with encouraging some people from Andreas who I haven't met yet, even though I live there. Hannah's working with a Derby group. Lots of work going on in other parts of Bride, rural. If there is a rural Bride, as distinct from an urban Bride, the urban Bride is obviously very small, and there are lots and lots of opportunities. I would say more opportunities in a way outside Ramsey, because it is just so much more rural. But quite a lot of the villages have, it appears to me, have become urban in the sense that a lot of the people who live there work elsewhere, whether it be Douglas or whatever, and they become more like dormitories rather than communities. This is just how I see it. The people I meet who lived there for years, like Carl and Jeanette here from Solby, for instance, and there's a number of places there which are really ripe for development, for this sort of thing, for community opportunities. In Andreas, I was just driving by the village hall, and behind the village hall is just a large piece of green grass, which presumably is cut within an inch of its life once or twice a year. And yet, what an opportunity! A really nice piece of land. There'll probably be at least 5 planning reasons or ownership reasons or whatever as to why we can't do things there. But that's a real opportunity right in the middle of Andreas. In Bride, a young lady who is not very well. Does anybody know Bride well? At the top of the Burma Road, so the Bride Cross at the top of Bride Hill.
Yeah.
There's a commissioner's housing estate there called Airview.
Yeah.
Really quite nicely landscaped, but again they cut the grass within an inch of its life. And why did they do that? Because then they won't have to come back and do it again in 3 months' time. Real opportunities for a wildflower meadow, wildflower opportunities. So in the villages there are real opportunities, but I don't see much happening. And so tonight was targeted as one of those situations where we can, perhaps, just by talking amongst ourselves in our respective villages, looking for opportunities. And do get in touch with Hannah. I know she's there now, but if she can leave some information about how she can, how you can get hold of her by email, or by phone, and we can get things moving in our respective areas. We live between Bride and Andreas, as Viv, my wife, was saying. We ruin my Father's Day it used to be every year, it's now every other year. I get one off and have a great gardeners fair. And please do get in touch with us. We have a list of perennials which we know will sell. And those, by the way, are the ones that are in flower, would you believe it, on the day. If it's not in flower on the day, forget it. Our shoppers are not very trusting that it'll all be right on the night. You want to see it. And so, yes, we have a list of perennials. We can provide the seeds. We would encourage peat-free compost. We've identified a really good one. It is more expensive, not surprisingly, but you know, you won't be using very much if you're growing an extra 10 or 5, 10, 20 plants, which you could bring for us to sell on the day. So lots and lots of opportunities. We'll put our details, and you can get in touch with us if you feel you can grow some stuff for June 23. So that'll be a New Year's resolution.
I think the idea is put your name on a piece of paper and put it in the box.
Yeah, so that's right. It's probably easier for us to get in touch with you, so if you just pop your name, telephone number, email, whatever, and where you live. I don't necessarily mean your address, but you know.
As is demonstrated by.
As demonstrate, yes, that's right. And we will be in touch in the next few weeks. Thank you very much.
On a completely practical note, talking of peat, we happen to have an overflowing horse manure heap. So we've heard lovely things about people's community gardens. So if anybody wants any manure, we've got far too much. And we have a trailer, so we might be able to deliver some. So get in touch with these guys if you need some manure for your projects or gardens, whatever it is, and we'll do what we can.
Thank you, Leigh. Well, that went down well.
It's pesticide-free manure as well.
Yeah. So what we're going to do now is just allow you to take some time to have discussions on your table, to come and take a look at the board and get more ideas that other people have put forward, and discuss things amongst yourselves. So, you know, maybe you have an idea and maybe the people on your table actually want to help make that happen. If you want to raise it to the whole room, then please raise your voice.
Can I say something about quiet? It's an idea I had. Where I used to live in East Anglia, they had lanes, small roads that was designated as quiet lanes, and it strikes me that a lot of wildlife gets squashed along the hedgehogs, hares. The road I live on, I see dead hares there all the time. And I was wondering if it's a shame Daphne's gone actually, because I was interested to hear what the MHKs might think about it. Just designating some of these small lanes, and one example is that little lane that's parallel to Summerhill Road, which is a lovely little windy lane. And I just wondered if that would help reduce the number of dead carcasses that we actually see on the roads and help improve the situation for wildlife.
Can you explain what you mean by a quiet lane?
Well, I think it's to encourage people to slow down and to be aware of, you know, the wildlife there, just to have a think about it when we go charging down there. Unfortunately, our road is on the valley course, and they come every year and they hare around it on the valley course. So I do appreciate that motorsport, you know, is an important part of the island's economy and everything, but I just think if we had one or two roads that people would think more about it maybe, is to encourage people to think about what they're doing in their life.
Yeah, definitely.
I think, yeah, because you'd hope that people aren't purposely,
Well,
running
no,
over
that-
things.
that
I mean,
does happen.
yeah.
That does happen.
Because they actually sign.
Yeah, well, in East Anglia, they have these little signs at the side of the road.
Yeah, so that's great. I hadn't heard of them, so I could go and look that up. But I think, yeah, just reminding people actually that when they're driving around, these things come out of nowhere.
So somewhere else where there's a group of people who would have the background knowledge that you require to do a lot of this is the allotment societies, because they can do it on the allotments. Plus they can help people who needed just that little bit of knowledge to keep things going, because they've already got it.
Definitely.
And they are the same as you and me. They're not anything any different.
Definitely. Yeah, definitely.
Sorry, probably most people didn't hear that, Jim.
Most. I was saying that a lot of the useful information could be obtained through people who run allotment societies and places like that. Those are the people who could help guide you with just that little bit of knowledge to keep things ticking over as it goes along. You don't necessarily want anybody totally in charge of things and running around and ordering people about, but you want it as a little group of people who has that little bit of knowledge which becomes the guidance for that group. That's the point I'm making. And the other thing, of course, is if you involve the allotment societies, then they can do all this on the allotments themselves, which is as good a place as any to do it. A lot of the allotments, several that I go to, have bees, for example, and they've done this simply to upgrade their own stuff. So it's a useful thought, allotment. So what I was saying in a very quiet voice was, do bear it in mind, please.
And how would we get in touch with the? Is it the allotment association? Is that
Yeah,
that the contact that we look for?
If you just go to one,
Yeah.
and they've got a little booklet and it's got a list of all the things in there.
Yeah, brilliant.
Yeah. If you get really, really stuck, give me a shout.
Okay, that's what I want to do.
Okay, I'm aware that we said that we'd end this evening at 9 o'clock and it's 5:02. So I think just to summarise, at Manx Wildlife Trust we're really keen to help people with their community projects, and it's just to give a helping hand and support these brilliant ideas that you have. So, if you go away and you're sort of, if Vanessa's garden is sort of lingering in your mind and you're thinking, oh, I'd love to do that, or I can think of a patch of grass that's getting a bit overgrown and maybe that could be a garden, then get in touch with us because we'd love to support you. We know it can be quite scary, that's what Lucy was saying, but we can give you a helping hand to support your ideas and get more wildlife into your community, which will help people as well as nature. So, if you go away and you suddenly have that light bulb moment and you think, oh yeah, look, just outside my garden, then please get in touch because we'd love to hear from you and we'd love to help you out. And go away and speak to your neighbours and talk to your friends and see if you can come up with anything. Did you want to say?
One more thing to say. So we focus really heavily on what you can do if you want to jump in the ring on your own, but we never want to underestimate our volunteers who come and volunteer for us in a traditional way. We're trying to add up how many hours they provide for us, and we think it's well over 10,000, but I'm still trying to do the maths on it. So if Team Wilder sounds lovely, but it's not your thing, we have got a very long list of traditional volunteering roles and projects that you can get involved with where you come along and there's tasks and people do them as a team. So if that's more your thing, please don't think that side of things isn't important to us, because it always will be a huge part of what Manx Wildlife Trust can do and what we can achieve. So Team Wilder all the way, but also traditional volunteering will never not be hugely important to us. So that's just a last.
Thank you. Cool. And that's it. You're free to go.
Thank you very much.